You know, our whole mission is to receive the people that are sent to us either by way of the detention center for minors or one of the hospitals. And we're basically basing our whole premise on Matthew 25. I was hungry, you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. A stranger in your land, and you welcomed me.
See, what happens with these kids, the cartels and all the maras and the sectas, they want to indoctrinate the younger kids to take over so they can join their pandillas, their gang. Because they get threatened. They said, if you don't do it, we'll kill you or kill somebody in your family.
Pues mataron a un primo mío y más que todo por eso me vine.
He says that they killed one of his cousins, and that's really the reason that impelled him to come north.
Aparte de mis familiares que ya habían matado anteriormente.
That's besides the other family members that had been murdered previously. In a lot of ways, I see a strong parallel between the flight into Egypt by the Holy Family, as we recall from the scriptures. Joseph had to take Mary and the newborn child and flee because Herod was out to destroy him. And in a lot of ways, I see that is what happens with so many of the kids who end up at Posada Guadalupe. They're fleeing not only just to get away from the poverty, but to get away from the violence of gangs.
So what does this 13, 14-year-old kid decide to do? I'll just leave. So leave me alone, leave my family alone. And that's what they do. They just leave and wind up over here. You know, it's just escaping violence.
And you know, when we speak about all these young people who are trying to come north, a lot of people in San Antonio have asked, well, is it legal what you're doing? And in fact, it actually is. This is how it works. Immigration law applies differently to minors than it does to adults. If a young person, what they call an unaccompanied minor, is arrested by Border Patrol, for example, that person is taken to a detention center for minors. And then lawyers will go to these centers frequently to see if there are any newcomers, to see if they have a case, which means if a young person can establish that he's been abused, abandoned, or neglected by one or both parents in his country of origin, then he can make an appeal for legal status in the United States. We only get these kids after that process has begun. And so for all practical purposes, the kids become wards of the state of Texas.
That's where Raices comes into play, where we go to the juvenile coordinators at Immigration Customs Enforcement and request that a child who is aging out be placed at Posada Guadalupe so that his immigration process can continue and ultimately terminate hopefully in lawful permanent residence status.
Y pues tuve 15 días para llegar a la frontera.
It took me a couple weeks to get up to the border.
No, pues en el tren es feo porque uno viene arriesgándose.
Well, on the train it's really ugly. It's really awful because you have to take a big risk.
El tren es muy peligroso y pues mucha gente no lo sabe agarrar y se cae.
And the train is very dangerous just all itself because some people are not good at grabbing it and jumping on. Sometimes they fall and get hurt. You know, frequently people ask us, what do we do? What's a typical day here? And in a lot of ways it's hard to respond to that because a typical day here is, it depends on what circumstance or what incident presents itself, and maybe nothing out of the ordinary. You know, if Joe or I has to cook, well, we'll come over, we'll do that. But sometimes it's simply a ministry of presence.
It's heartbreaking because you see these kids and they're like lost sheep, you know. They're in search of a shepherd, and this is what we try to do. We try to be a shepherd, and we try to guide them the right way. We try to